Good morning, everyone. Oh, that was loud. We're going to get started shortly, so grab your teas and coffees, take a seat. There's lots of space at the front here. We've got an exciting morning ahead, and we want to get started. So if you could take a seat, that would be great.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So we're about to kick off day 2. And to the extent that yesterday was a amuse-bouche, today is the real meal in terms of what we're going to try and do. We're going to have a whole range of pitches, which I'm going to speak about a little bit later. But today is the day where you hear from a series of organizations who are doing this work on the ground and are explaining what they're doing. So I'm very, very excited to do that. As a prelude to that, Danny Shushkandaraja is going to give a keynote address. Danny has been working on migration policy, as he just reminded me, for many, many years. He spent 5 years of his life thinking about it deeply. He has been leading a range of really important organizations which are at the coalition of a lot of these issues. Civicus, Oxfam, now the New Economics Foundation, has been a trustee of Comic Relief, so is a friend of the Conduit, a founding member, a really exceptional human being, and somebody who we're honored to hear from. So over to you, Danny.
Thank you very much, Paul. I've been called lots of things in my life. An amuse-bouche is, I think, the first time I've been described as that. But I'm really happy to be one, to be a sort of palate cleanser, if you will, before the main event, which I'm very excited about. I'm really happy to be here because I think what we're trying to do over these 2 days is hugely important. You know that. And you know that because many of you are entrepreneurs, many of you are investors, donors, refugees, activists. I want to reflect on 3 reasons why I think what we're doing is particularly important. And the 3 reasons relate to 3 fundamental questions about our future, humanity's future, that I think we are helping to answer. And I think all of the projects and ideas that we'll hear about later will help to answer. And these are 3 questions that I don't think society discusses enough. There's almost a sort of willful neglect about these 3 questions. And the 3 questions are, will there be more or less mobility in the future, in the coming years? Will there be more or less human mobility in decades to come? Do we treat those who move with dignity, or do we sanction them? Do we give them opportunity, or do we punish them? And the third question is, are our current economic models delivering for people and planet? And I hope, what I want to sort of convince you, if you need convincing, is on each of those questions, the sorts of things we're going to be talking about and hearing about later today have positive, tangible answers. The first, do we think that the world is going to have more or less mobility in years to come? I worry that many of us, particularly in the global north, have been conditioned to believe that it's not going to happen. I saw it very acutely. Katya reminded me of being on a program called Question Time, BBC Question Time here in the UK a few months ago. And someone in the audience said, you're talking about these small boats and we need to stop the boats. Why don't we, she said, why don't we just take a knife and slash the dinghies as people are crossing the English Channel? And I thought to myself, wow, I don't think this person was inherently racist necessarily. I don't think she was misanthropic. She didn't hate humanity. But she's been led to believe that if only we take a little bit of action in the last mile, that we will somehow stop human mobility. That somehow we can build ever higher fences, put even more security on our borders to stop people from moving. And I contrast that to a few months before when I was working at Oxfam and spent some time in Somaliland. And as many of you know, East Africa has been facing arguably the worst drought in living memory. 4 or 5 successive raining seasons have failed. People are dying of hunger. And I met pastoralists in Somaliland whose lives have been overturned, who are having to move, who are desperate, who are seeking assistance from humanitarian agencies like Oxfam, who are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis. Right? Already, Oxfam research has suggested that in the last 20 years, we've seen an 8-fold increase in humanitarian need as a result of extreme weather events, like droughts, floods, wildfires, hurricanes. You can't pin any one of these events down to climate change, but the trend is clear. And these pastoralists in Somaliland had almost nothing to do with climate change. Being a pastoralist, arguably the least climate-intensive lifestyle a human being can lead, and yet they're at the front line of climate breakdown. And if you put these two together, that you've got people in the West being conditioned to believe that there is going to be less mobility and that we can somehow curb human mobility, while the reality, whether it's because of climate breakdown, whether it's because of war, whether it's because of demography, that everything around us suggests there'll be more mobility, not less. And the thing that I keep remembering, and Paul mentioned that I spent 5 years working on migration policy. This was many years ago when I thought things couldn't get any worse, and they have. The thing that I kept coming back to is, as a species, our very success on this planet has relied on our ability to move, right? We have spread out from where our species emerged and conquered the world, not in good ways necessarily, but as a species we've been successful because of our ability to move, our ability to adapt to different circumstances, to take up opportunities in different parts of the planet. And yet somehow in the 21st century, tens of thousands of years later, we've convinced ourselves we need to be bounded by these artificial borders and these rules and these passports and these documents that are all human constructs of a relatively recent era. And we've somehow said that's what we're going to take for granted. And so the first question I think we as society have to confront is, how do we, if you buy my line, how do we create systems, societies, public policies that lean into the idea that more of us will want to move, will need to move, and that itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Although I'm not, and I'm very conscious that, of course, many refugees move not out of choice, but because they have to. So I think the first question that comes to mind for me is, how do we get more people to understand that the future will almost inevitably involve more mobility than less? The second is, for those people who do move, particularly for refugees, do we have an approach that's based on opportunity or sanction? And here I'm really sort of frustrated, on the verge of angry, that societies around the world, again, mostly in the West, but not only. I've been to parts of the global South where refugee reception policies are just as draconian. The general policy approach is one of punishment. We will treat you badly because you've dared to cross borders. We won't let you work. We won't let you bring your family. We will tell you where you need to live. We will tell you what benefits you'll get, and by the way, they won't be the same benefits that the host community will receive, and so on. And it makes me angry because it's not right in a moral sense, but it's also stupid. It's the most stupid approach to harnessing the benefits of human mobility. And so again, if you believe the first thing I was saying, that our success as a species is based on our ability to move, then why wouldn't we harness those opportunities? Why wouldn't we give opportunities for people to be entrepreneurial? And for me, one of the best examples of where I saw that done was in Zaatari refugee camp in Lebanon. So some of you will remember when the Syrian crisis happened, Zaatari in northern Lebanon became, I think, the world's second biggest refugee camp. And like in many parts of the world, refugees in Jordan are not allowed they don't have the same rights and freedoms that Jordanians have to live in most part inside the camp. We as Oxfam were working inside the camp and weren't able to provide formal employment to any of these refugees because that wasn't permitted. But one of those refugees said to a colleague of mine many years ago, well, look, why are all these people in this very large refugee camp with 100,000 people throwing litter all over the place? This place is ridiculous because look at all of the mess that's created. It's unhygienic. It's not a pleasant place to live. It's a real shame because when I worked in Damascus, I ran a waste business. And we could make money from collecting all this waste. And so, with the help of this amazing man, Oxfam set up Zaatari's biggest waste recycling endeavor. And today, an army of volunteers, that we're going to have to call them volunteers, although they get a stipend because they're not formally allowed to work, go about Zaatari collecting all sorts of waste: cardboard, metals, glass, aluminium. It's packaged. It's in some cases having to be shipped to Turkey because Lebanon doesn't yet have the waste recycling facilities to do recycling at scale. It's not quite a self-sufficient business yet, but it's amazing. And it's amazing because you think, well, A, this is creating employment, although we're not allowed to call it that. B, it's a sustainable solution to managing waste. And C, it creates a sense of community inside the camp where people are not just only doing productive things, but making their lives and the spaces that they're living in much more amenable. And so you think to yourself, why is it that we can't, in more contexts like this, think about opportunities. And that's why the sorts of ideas that are being discussed here today are so important and in some ways so precious and rare in terms of thinking about employment and opportunity and sustainability. And so I think that's an example that I think about there. Here in the UK, we've had, again, a similar approach that if you dare to come and cross these borders without permission, without one of the visas that will make you, jump through hoops, in general, we will treat you like persona non grata, that we won't give you the rights to work, to be reunited with your family, other fundamental human rights that we think we won't. And you think to yourself, well, is this economically sensible? What's the answer? Absolutely not. Right? I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about how creating, supporting entrepreneurialism amongst refugee communities is a good thing. Let me give you the macro picture. A few years ago, we did a fiscal analysis looking at whether immigrants as a whole, so not just refugee population, contribute into the exchequer or take money out of the public purse. Right? So we get fed this line that immigrants here in this country are scroungers, they're taking public services, they're consuming things, they don't pay for things. What do you think the answer is? Do you think immigrants as a whole contribute or take away from the public purse? Contribute. They're net contributors. It turns out, when you look at the actual data, all immigrants work longer hours than the British-born population. On average, they pay higher taxes. On average, by the way, they're better educated, but don't often work in jobs that are suited to their education. And in net terms, over the course of their lifetime, because they come and they're often at a young age, they're productive, they work longer, they are net contributors. And so the economic argument is clear. And let me just finish one more point around why this approach really worries me about the approach of sort of sanctioning people who cross borders worries me. It's because when you dig a bit deeper, you see that in many parts of the world, including in this country, that approach suits a lot of people who rely on the informal economy, who rely on having access to a pool of labor that doesn't have rights, vulnerable people who they can exploit. And to me, that is the dark underbelly of the sort of economic system that we're building, that in this country, in some ways, for many decades, has become addicted to cheap, informal labor, whether it's in the rural or agricultural sector, in the coastal populations that rely on people to go out and do very dangerous jobs, in the care sector. Jobs that are dirty, difficult, and dangerous, that the local population doesn't seem to want to do and employers are not paying enough to, are attracting undocumented workers, many of whom are. And so we have a fundamental economic contradiction in some ways, or a tension that we need to address, which is to think through how we can we avoid the exploitation of people, including in modern so-called sophisticated economies like this one. And the only approach, the best approach, for that is to treat people with dignity and humanity, to offer them opportunity, not sanction, because that's the best way of bringing people out of the shadows, allowing them to live a life of dignity and make the best contribution that they can to society. Let me close by just asking that third question. Is the current economic model that we're pursuing likely to succeed or not? And what intrigues me about what I've read so far about many of the ideas and proposals that are going to be discussed today is that many of them are about different ways of thinking through economic activity. They're about involving refugees in decision-making. It's about sustainability. It's about empowering people. It's about creating good jobs. And that I find particularly inspiring because I think the moment has come for us to challenge so many of the fundamentals that we've taken for granted in how the modern economy works. As a species, again, we've kidded ourselves, I would argue, for the last century or so, that this approach, the contemporary approach to modern economics, is the right one. We've assumed that somehow through globalization, through industrialization of so many aspects of our life that we can grow our way to success. But wherever I look, the opposite is happening. Take inequality, for example. Last year, every single country in the world for which we have data saw a rise in inequality. During the two years of the COVID pandemic, 20, 21, and 22, the 24-month period, when we thought that we would see the sort of leveling of, people called the pandemic the great leveler, because all of us as humans were in this together. All of us could have gotten infected. We were going to come together. Did we see humanity being leveled? No. We saw the opposite. We saw the most dramatic rise in inequality we've seen, again, since record began. If you take a small group, the world's richest people, the richest 1% of the world's population, their combined wealth grew, the combined wealth of the richest 1% grew by 2/3. Let me start again. Of all the wealth that was in the 2 years between 2020 and 2022, the 1% of the world's population accounted for 2/3 of all new wealth created in that 2-year period. The world's billionaires, 2,500 of them, saw their wealth more than double in cumulative terms. And so we've built a system that isn't delivering for most of us, for most people on the planet. We've built an economic model that isn't delivering in terms of environmental sustainability, that is exploiting. We've built an economic model in which globalization in some ways yields amazing results for some of us, but the price is hidden in plain sight. Let's take tea, for example. I was born in Sri Lanka, so tea is a commodity that I'm particularly passionate about. And I've already had 2 cups this morning. Britain, in fact, Britain's the second largest, highest per capita consumption of tea in the world. How does that happen? It happens through this amazing process of industrialization, of global trade, of commodification. So much so that, if you walk a few hundred meters that way to the Strand and you go to the Golden Lion tea shop, which is the tea shop that Thomas Twining opened in 1796, Europe's first permanent tea shop, a weight pound of tea leaves would have cost you about £500 sterling at the time, in today's money. If I walk down to the local Aldi where I live, I can buy 0.5 kilogram of tea bags for just over £1 sterling. So how is it that the price of tea has fallen by 400-fold, if you will, over that time? It's because it's, again, amazing human ingenuity. We've taken a shrub from one part of the world, China, we've planted it all over the rest of the world, we've created plantation economies, we've brought people in Sri Lanka, hundreds of thousands of people were brought from India to work on tea plantations. We've created a global industry, global brands, and we've been able to move stuff all in containers all through the world. So in some ways, you think that's a remarkable, remarkable achievement of humanity. But on the other hand, you think about the fact that those tea pickers, the people who are doing the back-breaking work, picking the tea leaves that I drank this morning, receive on average only 1% to 4% of the price that we pay. And in fact, for many food products, the price that the actual producer, the farmer, the picker, receives is generally no more than 10 to 15%. Tea is a particularly bad commodity, but most other things we... So how do we build a system that has driven the price down for us as consumers, but not driven the wages up for those who are doing the difficult work? How is it that we've built a system where the actual price of moving that tea from Ceylon to London, that's being paid by the planet in terms of the emissions of those ships that are bringing that tea, and the whole range of other impacts on nature, on biodiversity through that plantations. Why is it that that price is not included in the tea that I drink that I could buy at Aldi? And so the price that people are paying and the price that the planet is paying from our contemporary globalized economic system is unaccounted for And it's a dangerous path that's going to lead to further social unrest, because people are going to realize that this is not a system that's going to work for them. And of course, as we're seeing already, it's going to lead to further environmental destruction. And so let me conclude with those three questions again. Are we living in a world where we're going to see more mobility or less mobility? Should we live in a world where we create opportunities for those people who move? And do we want to live in a world where the current economic model is going to be sustainable? And I don't think you're the sort of audience that needs reminding of this, but we are going to see more mobility. We have no choice but to treat those people who move with dignity and create opportunities for them. And we need a new economic model that puts people's rights, workers' rights at their heart, that creates more democratic systems of businesses, where businesses look much more like social enterprises than they do like the big corporates that we've seen emerging on the world stage. And the wonderful thing about the ideas that we'll be hearing more about today is I think all of them in different ways addresses each of those questions. It's about leaning into the idea that more people will move, that we'll need to be more responsible, and that we can create opportunities not by replicating what's wrong with the current economic model, but creating new forms of enterprise that are more empowering, that are more sustainable, that are more inclusive. And I think that's what excites me about the ideas we're about to hear about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Danny. And I think that is a perfect and very fitting prelude to the pitches that are about to commence. Before we do so, I think it would be fitting to hear a brief set of words from Nick Vetch. I referred to Nick in my opening remarks yesterday. Nick is a remarkably successful business leader, is the founder of the Big Yellow Group, a FTSE 100 or FTSE listed company, has played a very important role in supporting human rights in the United Kingdom and elsewhere, and has done a lot of work recently on refugees through the prism of being a business person and a pragmatist and a solutionist, but also brings a great amount of passion and inspiration to the subject. So I thought it would be nice to have a few words from Nick before we go into the pitches. Nick.
Good morning. So I wasn't going to speak, but yesterday compelled me to speak. And when we conceived, or when this conference was conceived, it was clear, and it became consensus quickly, that this needed to be solutions-based. We wanted concrete results. We wanted people to go out of this room with plans of action. And that has been delivered, and it is reflected and will be further reflected in what will follow after me. But I then started thinking about all the people in this room and why were they here? And indeed, why was I doing what I do? Why did a business person effectively turn their life into a person who advocates, crusades, whatever it is that I do for this endeavor? And I thought that the thing that's really missing in the ingredient isn't missing, it's there, and it's very palpable. And what it is passion. All of you could do anything that you wish to do, but you don't. You come and do this. It's why Charlie worked for 2 years for no pay. And it's palpable in the anger that I can hear in people's voices, not just the speakers, but also the audience, the questions. It's also palpable in the conversations that you have all had. So what I wanted to say was that great change doesn't happen just by solutions. It happens because of passion, it happens because of energy, and it happens because of anger. And it is right and proper that we should be measured, we should be considerate, we should be tactical, we should be strategic, and above all, we should be intelligent about what we do. But what I do want to say to you is that we also need to be angry about this. We need to be very, very angry. We need to be angry at the debasement of the people who we are trying to help. We need to be angry about the unwarranted attacks on them, about the politicization of people's lives, about the disrespect, about the humiliations that are perpetrated. These things make us angry, and we need to mobilize that anger constructively together. I also want to make clear that I believe that the mobilization of that anger is best done together. We do not understand yet the power of what we can do together.
Okay, so now we are going to go do that together. So we have a format, and the format is that we're going to hear from 12 organizations. Everybody has 5 minutes to say what they do. Please listen attentively. And I want you to listen attentively because we have structured the day so that you will have an opportunity to interact with the organizations that you will hear from. So once we've gone through the pitches, we're going to break up into 3 groups structured in thematic areas, and we're going to have a period of engineered, serendipitous speed dating, where everybody's going to be able to interact, ask questions. Every 10 minutes or so, a bell will be rung and you will be asked to move on so that you don't hog the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs don't hog you. And you'll be able to get as many different interactions as possible, ask as many questions as you can, find out how it is that you can support the people that are here to give their pitches. The other thing to say to those who are doing pitches, I once gave a talk at TED and I said to Chris Anderson, who was the founder of TED, I know you've given me 12 minutes, I might be 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And he said, if you are 12 minutes and 1 second, I will personally come onto the stage and rip you off the stage. So I said, okay, I guess I'll be 12 minutes then. So try and stick to your 5 minutes, because if we go over in aggregate, then we're going to go over quite a lot. So do your 5 minutes and you will have ample time to interact in the speed dating sessions that we have set up. So it is my great pleasure to introduce the first the first 8 pitches, then we're going to take a breather, and then we'll do the final 5. So the first one is the International Rescue Committee. So please give them a warm round of applause. Well, that went extremely well. It's
slight change of plan. We actually have Job Linger first, followed by Deepak, Relevant Ventures, and Equal Reach and Namal.
Great. That's the order.
Please imagine, we're at the Olympic Games, 800-meter run. Usain Bolt is competing. Fastest man in the world, of course he wins. But there's been a rule change. For every millisecond that he is faster than the competition, he is fined £10,000. Also, first, second, and third place all count as the same. How do we think he feels? I'm guessing he's a little frustrated, and he's questioning the system. Please keep this image in mind. We'll get back to it. So I'm Regina. I'm from Droblinge. We're based in Germany. I'll give you a quick rundown of what we do and why we do it. As the UK, Germany is also facing a skilled worker shortage. We have 70,000 vacant apprenticeships, but at the same time, we have 2.3 million young people without vocational training. So the apprenticeships could easily be filled. Why is there such a discrepancy in numbers? It's because education and origin are still the main deciding factors of getting into the job market. It's a completely unjust system. This is where we come in. What do? We have set up a 6-month program designed to help young people with challenging backgrounds get into an apprenticeship. We do this in cooperation with the German job centers who place young people into our program. The program consists of different aspects. So they get a personal mentor at their side. They have CV training, interview training. They look at what are actually my strengths. Where should I go into the job market? What is my thing? They gain practical experience in internships, usually around 3 internships. And then at the end of the 6 months, hopefully they get into an apprenticeship. We've been doing this for 15 years. We've worked with 15,000 young people very successfully. We have a placement rate of 80%. And usually we actually place them into an apprenticeship after 3 months, not after 6. We do this Germany-wide, 32 locations. And in 2016, as an answer to the refugee crisis, we created the Compass program, basically a longer version of our classic 6-month program containing a language course and just more support in each area. We've been working with around 3,000 refugees, and in this program we have a placement rate of 73%. Let's check back in with Usain Bolt, who's now sweaty. He's out of money, probably still frustrated. Why am I telling you this story about the fake story about Usain Bolt? It's because we have something in common with him. We're very proud of our success, but actually our success is costing us money because only 60% of our costs are covered by public funding. The rest needs to be gathered by private funding. But the kicker is, from the public funding, it only comes to us as long as the young people are in our program. From the day that we place them into apprenticeship, the money stops. So our costs are calculated for 6 months, but if we go into an apprenticeship after 3 months, we are losing money. So our success really is costing us money. At the same time, other initiatives that work in our area as well don't actually showcase their numbers. We know they are keeping the young people longer in their programs because of course they do. They're incentivized to do so by the public funding system. Keep them longer, keep them in the loop, don't get them into apprenticeships, so you get your money. Also, they don't actually show the success rate, so the placement rate. So everything counts as the same. We are competing in the public eye, we are doing the same as everyone else. So the consequence is we could help way more young people, but we just can't afford to because we haven't got the money to. So we require external funding. What have we done? Together with the Human Safety Net, we have created the Outcome First Apprenticeship Fund. Basically, for every refugee that we place into an apprenticeship, we can get a certain amount of the fund to cover the incurring costs. This enables us to A, work independently from the public sector and help way more young people and way more young refugees. The fund is already set up for 3 years and it is funded by the Human Safety Net. And we are now looking for more investors to increase the time frame of the fund and of course the numbers of young people that we can work with. Our ambitious goal is to set a precedent. We think success should be efficiency. That should be the success factor. The benchmark should not be how long can we keep someone in a program, but how quick can we actually get them out of the program and into an apprenticeship? Because as we heard yesterday, apprenticeship work is the key to being integrated into society. So basically, let's change society together. Thank you very much.
I hope you can hear me. Yeah, great. So I am delighted to introduce you to DPACT, which is an acronym of 6 pivotal words: Diverse Innovative Platform for Arts Communities Transformation. We are multicultural community cafes run and led by artists from forced migration or global majority backgrounds. We managed to kind of achieve this by providing really respectable employment and really meaningful platform for artists to share their stories, their art and skills. And we are really proud to be working with over 100 artists we've established in 2016, but we have been a social enterprise in the past 2 years. So I'm going to take you to the story. No one chose to leave their hometown country by force. When I left my hometown country in 2009, at the age of 21 as a young artist, basically I faced nearly 6 years of being an asylum seeker. So those years, which was my golden years of being 20 years old, made me look at the fails and the gaps in the cultural sector. But after years, and getting my refugee status, I've become one of the Manchester cultural leaders, and I've become working in the UK and also internationally. But why did I get jobs when I've met artists that are famous in their hometown countries, come to the UK, and they start working in takeaways, they're either jobless on job center, and they cannot find work. So we're looking at an employment crisis in the arts and culture sector. Let me tell you that in the first 6 months of lockdown, we lost 55,000 creative jobs. It means that people start leaving the creative jobs and the graphs start going higher and higher. And not only that, we're looking at the UK Cultural Services stats that just this year, UK has spent £4.48 billion on the cultural sector. So we're looking at, just not employment for the artist, and actually the urgent need for an strategically approaching to support the artist and to utilize this fund. So looking at this problem and looking at lack of spaces for artists, not having enough cultural integration really kind of inspired me to establish DPACT, and it's been established also with my partner, who is also an artist, couldn't get a job. Now he's kind of gets second passion as a lead chef of National Trust, so serving hundreds of customers in the past 11 years. So basically, our segments are, we are a multicultural community cafe that run by artists. So the coffee and the tea that you've been drinking right now, in our menu, it comes with a visual art and a poem. So the menu has been infused by the artist's works. And not only that, you can scan the QR codes on the table to get to know artists. We have artist hubs, we organize events, we organize basically workshops, and it actually opens up a really brave atmosphere to have dialogues. So our business model was really innovative, and because we are a CIC, we can trade and attract grants. It means that our 70% of profit is from the cafe selling art, and the grants is going to help us strategically to support the artist. So we've been testing the business model, and we've been testing it with over 150 people in Manchester to doing surveys, and we've got 100% positive feedback with amazing calls. That one of them has been saying that in rainy Manchester, I just want to come to this cafe. And we are cafe clusters. It means that we're going to have different franchise. And not only that, we've been collaborated with one of the busiest cafe in Manchester to test our business model. And not only it has scaled the profit, and the community and the customers gather to the space, artists loved and get to know how to run the spaces. And I'm talking about this December. So not only that, based on our business model, we increase employment. And we really support the artists with the skills. Besides that, we really reduce the stigma and discrimination. And by that, we build cultural bridges and social integration. And not only that, we maximize the government funds to make sure that it's strategically looking at the scale of the problem within the employment sector. So basically, what I'm going to kind of ask today, we're looking at now to really establish our cafe. So £35,000 is going to help us to open our first cluster, and for 12 months. £75,000 is going to help us to open 2 clusters, one in Manchester. We identified the need for these spaces in isolated areas in Stockport, in Rochdale, in Oldham, in Bury, in Wigan and Lee. And £150,000 would help us to not only open 2 clusters for 18 months, we are actually looking at having the all the clusters is going to organically come out of all of that. I have all the details and the numbers and the profit that after my pitch I can provide that. So I want to actually kind of take attention to one of the stories of our artists, because I'm talking about artists who come to this country from head management level, from professional levels. One of our artists recently won an international award winning, so his film became one of the best films in Rohip in Germany in film festival, and also his actress winning the best actress in Keys Germany Film Festival, and he just gone back to his low-wage job. So opening DPAC, it means that we can support and use the experience of these incredible artists. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Let me tell you a story. Samuel is a South Sudanese refugee in Kenya on the NAML program. He contacted us a few months ago to say he needed money. We responded to him, we can't give you money, but we'll give you an opportunity. Samuel had amazing skills, very good English, and the professionalism to be successful, yet he couldn't find employment. What we could do is we could link him to work. After the first week of work, he earned 4 times the average wage of a Kenyan graduate. My name is Lorraine Charles. I'm the Executive Director of NAML. At NAML, we link refugees to dignified remote work. We provide them with the training in the soft skills, and we provide them with the networks, the very important social capital, so they can be successful when we're looking for employment.
And my name is Giselle Gonzalez. I'm the founder and CEO of Equal Reach. We're a social enterprise that connects vetted teams of displaced talent and host community talent together to dignified digital work. After 8 years of working and researching in this space, I built a Fortune 5 company's first impact sourcing solution to connect refugee talent with digital work. And together, we are helping more companies do the same by bridging that gap through Equal Reach with incredible partners like NAML.
When we look at the issues that refugees face, the 114 million, we've been hearing this number throughout the last couple of days, the 114 million refugees that are in very precarious conditions. They face significant challenges. They often lack the skills and education, they lack the infrastructure, they lack the access to legal employment in countries in which they live. What we aim to do is to turn precarity into agency.
And that's where Equal Reach comes in. There are incredible programs worldwide that I know each of you know that are working with displaced talent. However, they lack critical market linkages for what comes after they graduate from these upskilling programs. Meanwhile, in the private sector, rapid digitization is transforming every industry, driving more of those companies to start sourcing from outside their local talent pools. These are two sides of the same coin. And Equal Reach and NAML are solving one problem with the other. We are connecting essentially with a fair trade version of a freelancing marketplace, connecting specifically displaced talent through a responsible sourcing framework that protects rather than exploits one of the most marginalized communities in the digital economy. We do this through team and project-based work. So essentially, Equal Reach receives projects from businesses and then connects them carefully to our vetted network of refugee talent teams. That we facilitate the contracts, the payments, and the matching along the way as a trusted intermediary for both parties. Our work with NAML is the perfect example of this model in action. So our first contract together after vetting NAML and bringing them on as an Equal Reach team was a $10,000 web development and complex DevOps project for a UK-based startup. We selected a team of refugee developers from Kenya and Ethiopia, and each team member was earning nearly $2,000 together, working as a team. They were building their portfolio, gaining experience, producing higher quality work, and meanwhile, de-risking the client from sending their business critical projects to a team of otherwise unknown talents. In comparison, one of the developers from that program, Susan, she applied for a project of nearly the same scope on an open marketplace for freelancing. And yet on there, she was competing with dozens of other freelancers for a project worth only $100 total. So EqualReach and Namal are proving that you can drive not only incredible business value, but also reportable social impact by sending work to teams of displaced talents. But we need your help. Together, we are seeking £600,000 in grant funding in order to scale up. EqualReach today has more project requests than we have the capacity to deliver, which is an incredible problem to have. However, we are ready to scale now. I'm gonna get really practical for those of you in the room listening for ROI. EqualReach is on track to deliver £800,000 worth of projects to refugee teams by the end of this year and 2.2 million by the end of next year. But we need that injection of cash in order to scale up now, and we are on track to be fully self-sustaining after our first 12 to 14 months.
With NAML's current limited capacity, we've got 2 tech leads, one of whom is a refugee. We can have a turnover of 200,000 this year with our current capacity. We could quadruple this with more money. Remember Samuel and Susan that we spoke about earlier? We want to create thousands of more refugees like them, but we need your help. We need the funding, but also, if you have a project that you need done, don't outsource it to an agency in London, outsource it to us. Our teams of refugee talent can deliver these projects at equal quality that you would get from a London agency, but you'll be supporting talent who actually need your help. But they don't just need your help, they don't need your pity, they need your business. So support us and we can do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now having a bit of a hybrid pitch, so we have someone joining us both online and on stage. We're then going to have a bit of a 5-minute breather before our next round of pitches. So if I could welcome Relevant Ventures on stage.
So I won't be saying much. I'm just here for the speed dating. We have my colleague Edson Niwamanya from Uganda, who's actually now based in Kenya for a conference, who's dialing in, and he'll be doing the pitching. There he is.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nikolaos. Good morning. My name is Edson Niwamanya from Uganda. I work with Relevant Ventures. We train and finance social entrepreneurs to solve biggest problems. And one of the entrepreneurs in our programs is Amy. Amy fled to Uganda from the Democratic Republic of Congo with her family, and she needed to start from a young age to fend for her family. Her pain and experiences inspired her to start Patapia. Patapia is a social enterprise that trains and finances refugee women to start and grow their small businesses. So Amy represents a group of growing social entrepreneurs that are trying to create a very big impact. Uganda is Africa's largest refugee hosting country, hosting over 1.5 million refugees. And this number is growing with the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, and many others. So our solution, we have created a unique funding model that offers social entrepreneurs like Amy an opportunity to raise financing. So Amy started Patapia, grew it to a certain stage, but just needed $10,000 to grow and scale her solution, which she struggled to get. So our solution, we have created what we call the Purpose Pool, a unique financing model that has elements like peer selection, where we involve the entrepreneurs that we have invested in financing those that we want to invest into next. What that does is that, one, it breaks the power dynamics, that they can come in along with our investors and facilitators to choose into entrepreneurs who want to invest into next. The other element is what we call revenue share financing. So compared to traditional financing instruments like debt, these refugee social entrepreneurs do not have collateral. So many of them either fear or are certain they cannot raise financing from banks. So what revenue share does is that you do not require to have any collateral. Come access the financing and pay a portion of your revenue until you have paid back an agreed, we call it multiple or interest. And my colleague Nicholas will share more about that. So to date, we set up a pilot in 2020, and we have invested $90,000 into 8 social entrepreneurs like Amy. And these entrepreneurs have gone on to raise over $250,000, and with support through technical assistance, have been able to grow their business at more than 40% average compounded. And so we believe that entrepreneurs like Amy can create, one, jobs, not just find them, create jobs, but then also inspire this wave of growing entrepreneurs within these refugee settings. So we are seeking $500,000, $400,000 of which will go directly into investing into these entrepreneurs. And the structure of our fund is that the returns that will come from their repayments will create a revolving sustainable fund where the returns can go into investing into other entrepreneurs. So the 100,000 will go to what we call the much needed technical assistance. These entrepreneurs are early stage and they need the capital and the training and the support to be able to create enough value, because for us success is, one, if they can grow the business, but then secondly, if they can scale them to the extent that they can raise more financing, which we have proven possible. So we are looking for partners, organizations that can go on this journey with us. I like the speaker who said we need to do this together. And I think this is a perfect opportunity. My colleague Nikolaus is going to be around for the summit. Very sad that I couldn't be there, but thank you all for being there. And please, if you have any questions, contact Nikolaus or myself on LinkedIn. My name again is Edson Iwamanya. Thank you so much.
Bit of a reset for 5 minutes. If you think you can grab a cup of coffee in that time, please do so. But we will be back in a short time, so don't move too far. Okay, we are going to get started again in about 2 minutes. We're going to have our next pitch on stage. So please take your seats. We're on a tight time schedule because there's only 5 minutes for each pitch and we want to make the most of it. So please take your seats. Okay. We're going to get going again. There's plenty of time for networking once we've got through our 8 more pitches. It's very exciting. So without further ado,
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Theo Skubla, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Each One. In France, where I'm from, it takes 10 years for refugees and immigrants to find long-lasting employment. Here we're talking about 2 million people only in France. 2 million of people who have the right to work, by the way. And thanks to my grandparents, who are Italian immigrants, I understood that our collective inertia is due mainly because of the fact that people fall into these 2 categories when we think about refugees. Those who want to help them, the poor people, and those who think that they are a misery we can't afford to welcome. In the 2 cases, we talk about poor people. However, I think there is a third way, one way that gathers all the people like us who are convinced that whatever their qualifications, whatever their origin, whatever their age, refugees represent a wonderful untapped potential. That's why we created Each One. What is Each One? Each One is a social enterprise that has this double mission to enable refugees and newcomers find long-lasting employment and to enable companies recruit those people who will make them stronger, more responsible, more resilient. How do we do so? Concretely, we offer training to recruitment programs that connects refugees and companies and that help the companies address specific recruitment shortfalls. Our main program, the all-in-one program, helps companies recruit 15 people to 20 people that are first trained intensively and in a tailored way by Each One, and this is free of charge for the participants. 2 important points is the fact that in addition to the training we provide to the participants, each participant is supported by a super coach that helps the participants alleviate the obstacles to employment, such as housing, health, childcare. We also help all the companies and their collaborators from start to finish so that they can freely and easily recruit the persons, but also train their managers so that they are ready to accompany the newcomers in work. In total, since 2016, Each One, it's 3,000 people that found a job up to their expectations. It's over 70% of them who immediately find a job after the program. It's more than 40 of the biggest companies in France that work with us right now. It's also 3.4 euros of savings for the French state each time we spend 1 euro. And it's finally a team of 50 employees that is fully dedicated to the mission. And with our team and alongside our partners, we want now our actions to become mainstream. We are starting off the year strongly with the first strong quarter, and we have ambition to support 1,000 people just this year. To reach this ambition, we are lucky to rely on a strong demand on the one hand, but also to rely on a robust business model, because 60% of our business model is self-funded thanks to our partnership with France Travail, the French labor institution, but also with companies. The 40 remaining percent are funded through grants, donations, like the support of the HSN, for example, which are necessary if we want to help refugees alleviate their barriers so that they can remain employed, such as housing, childcare, etc. Without that, we can't guarantee people can be employed and remain employed. And this is why I'm standing in front of you today, because we need structural financial support to continue do so and to continue bring this holistic solution. That way, by 2027, we seek to reach the 10,000 people supported milestone. In short, you understood? We want no potential left behind, and we hope to do that with you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Gautam Bardwaj. I'm co-founder and director of engineering at a firm called Parity that uses ethical solutions to help improve refugee resettlement. As most of you know, most refugees do not get a chance to resettlement, and even fewer get a chance to state their goals and aspirations along the way. Parity's team of technologists and social scientists are looking to change that by amplifying refugees' voices through the ethical use of tech and data. We're not just about resettlement, we're about granting agency, dignity, and pathways to self-determination. Parity began developing its platform on the heels of Canada's Syrian crisis back in 2016 through co-design with refugees. This allowed us to build safeguards in the form of humans in the loop that allowed us to build safeguards in the form of humans in the loop that in critical decision-making junctures. How do we achieve refugee empowerment? So we do so through advanced preference matching algorithms that connect refugees with sponsors, services, housing, and communities based on intelligent matching, based on refugees' preferences and needs. But we go beyond matching. We collect feedback from refugees post-resettlement through rigorous monitoring and evaluation frameworks, working with organizations like HIAS across such areas as in employment, education, and housing, key themes of this summit. Refugees are a driving force, shaping every aspect of our work. To date, our success metrics speak for themselves. We have matched and resettled over 300 refugees globally in such innovative programs as Welcome Corps, hailed by the US State Department as the most innovative resettlement program in over 40 decades in the US, or 40 years in the US. In Rematch, we connected Ukrainian asylum seekers with complex housing situations in Germany based on real-time capacity. Phase 1 exceeded expectations due to the high acceptance rate from refugees, as well as stellar feedback from cities. And phase 2 is kicking off with focus groups with refugees and refugee-led organizations. but we can do more. So here are 3 ideas we have to further empower refugees through our ethical tech. So first, we'd like to enhance our data intake tools to improve accessibility and inclusivity. So currently, our tools are human and survey driven, which poses challenges in the areas of scaling and in survey fatigue from respondents. We're hoping to use emerging tech such as natural language processing to allow for a more interview format with refugees, which will allow the ease and reach of our tools to improve. Secondly, we'd like to align our matching with skills-based hiring trends. So we would like to do so by incorporating global skills taxonomies into our matching algorithm. This will allow us to expand economic opportunities for refugees by leveraging their full range of abilities, a key theme of this summit. Finally, we'd like to use machine learning to reveal hidden insights across our global and vast data sets that we have. We'll do so by working with ethical experts in the field to ensure that appropriate safeguards are in place and thereby mitigating risk. So through these data-driven recommendations, we're hoping to improve our policy and outcome abilities in order to inform those. As it stands, our revenue is stable, driven by our program impact and our matching services. We're open to growth funding, also collaborating with impact investors, philanthropists, and NGOs who share our vision and values. Now is the time to invest in ethical technology, empowering refugees to shape their paths and create positive change. I hope you join us on our journey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Said. I have traveled half of the world to join this discussion session for the 5 minutes. Not to deliver something that we call pitch, but to communicate a vision. So just imagine you are looking at your everyday clothing. What's written on the tag? If it is cotton, there is a chance that 25% of the chances that is produced in Bangladesh. So this is Bangladesh really holds the largest ready-made garment works in United Kingdom and all over UK. But this story that I wanted to tell is not about the market which I am talking about. This is beneath the market. That means the ready-made garments, when the rest of the leftover products really goes, there the business case really comes from. So we are here to share one particular issue. The proposed solution that I'm going to talk about is called waste to wage. So this is a proven concept that we already have started working together with the Rohingya refugee communities in Bangladesh. More than 1 million people are residing in the camps, with 50% of the women becoming the victim of it. So this particular model that comes with a challenge of challenging conventional economy, traditional textile economy, which comes with a concept of make, take, and dispose. Less than thinking about the regenerative process, but it is more about working with the circular economy. For example, where do the RMG waste or leftovers really goes? So there the process really starts. The model comes with empowering the women living in the camps, and at the same time giving them the opportunity and skill to work on RMG leftover garment and converting this into the products which can be sold. Because the supply chain is uninterrupted, as being one of the largest RMG producers and RMG leftover producers. So this is an opportunity where the women from the refugee camps and the impacted host community, they can work together. One of the greatest part of this particular model that we see that the refugees, that who are currently being very aid-driven and aid-dependent. This is an opportunity to give them a second life and give the products, the RMG leftovers, which actually goes to the incineration level and produce a lot of carbon dioxide emission. So this we can prevent this and giving the product a second life. In our prototype testing, what we already have done with Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs support and one donor support, we managed to create 48 tons of RMG waste, converting it into 0.02% of the entire total market, building confidence of the 1440 entrepreneur come women, refugee women living in the camps. So that means they right now have at least 100 pounds. They are earning 100 pounds in the forms of stipend and scholarship, because there is a protected crisis and government doesn't allow the direct money transfer, but they can get the chance to have the money as apart from the other works. And at the same time, this has a social benefit and environmental benefit of coming with 465,000 carbon dioxide gas emission. Same time looking for the confidence building and social cohesion creation, because the host community who are also impacted, they're also looking forward to see that what is the benefit. And still, after all these things, it's 0.001% of the entire market that we are looking into. That means with the 30,000 GBP model, what we can do, we can ensure the life and skill development of the 30 Rohingya refugees living on the same camp, transferring an opportunity and skill for them to earn 100 pounds per month, and with a payback of 12 to 35 months as a whole for the investment. We are looking for the impact investors to see the social benefit, the safeguarding of the women who are not restricted, not allowed to go outside the camp, work within the camp, and then still get a kind of economic support. So that's where we are looking at, and we would be more than happy to see the journey together with the investors and the brilliant minds in this room. We are also open to the technical solutions because it's a prototype. Right now, what we are looking into is to see that how we can play the big chunk of roles, because every single pounds what you might be interested to come in, join, and make sure that that is also being complemented by the other donors and other funding sources that we are trying to tap in, and creating a lasting impact for the refugees, challenging the conventional methodology. Because as you know that sustainable is not only the term that we should be looking at. This is a time to rethink and reimagine or regenerate the entire cycle, and giving the product and these people living in the camps a second life to make sure that we are coming with a regenerative way. Thank you. I will be happy to have you the more details if you're interested. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. The International Rescue Committee is looking for 250,000 pounds to help us deliver our refugee leadership program. We believe that decisions that deeply impact refugees and asylum seekers should be considering perspectives of that category of people. Yet, in the United Kingdom, from housing policies to healthcare policies, policymakers do not involve refugees and asylum seekers in the decision-making process because people in power do not really believe that it matters. So our refugee leadership programs is a solution to that problem. So what do we do and why is it important? Our leadership program is unique and worthy your support in many ways. We put our services at the center of refugees. It is designed and co-delivered by refugees. and refugees assess the needs in leadership, and then the training is addressing already identified needs. And so, when we deliver these programs, we try to achieve one important thing, and this is putting at the driving seat those most marginalized people in our societies. So it's a move from the passenger seat to the driving seat. And our program has demonstrated already impact. Participants have already made some changes or influenced some decisions. For example, a number of them are sitting on our charities refugee advisory board, where programs are designed and discussed. So they have an influence on what we do by designing services that are really meeting their needs. But more importantly, they have submitted ideas to the Haywood Prize, and they have also been involved in some commissioned work. For example, for the Independent Commission for Aid and Impact, where they contributed a lot to look at what the impact the aid for refugees is doing in the UK. This program is scalable. We have tested it. We have run a pilot project which trained 70 refugees as leaders. And these refugees have been involved into decision-making processes. They have met parliamentarians. We have involved them in a policy report that was presented to the parliament. We have seen them right at the heart of decision-making. If we get a funding to deliver this program again, we are looking at providing or training 250 refugee leaders who will have a huge impact in their communities and therefore be able to influence more other people in their communities. Your support would ensure that those most marginalized in our societies are firmly in the driving seat and are able to influence and drive policy change that will benefit the society as a whole. Now, I want to hand over to my colleague, a refugee journalist from Afghanistan, a BBC freelancer journalist, to tell you about her experience on the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Emery. Good morning, everyone. I am Zahra Shahir, Afghan refugee and journalist, and I arrived in the UK August 2021. And when I arrived in the UK, I had to embark both my personal and professional life in UK professional landscape. So I sought integration through the IRC courses, and I enrolled in a leadership course, which this significantly boosted my self-assurance and equipped me with vital skills for navigating in the UK landscape. It also ignited a profound commitment to affecting positive change within my community and beyond. Basically, I'm passionate about advocating for women and girls, especially those who are back home and facing challenges due to the Taliban's new rules. First, when I arrived in the UK, I found it difficult to do advocating because English was a second language and I couldn't speak English very good. After attending the IRC UK's leadership course, I found my voice back. And I gained the confidence and ability to go through the media parts and take interviews, to do interviews and engage in public speaking, including parliament, and advocating for human rights and women's rights worldwide, not limited to Afghanistan. And I thought that time to advocate for all women around the world, not only Afghanistan. So by challenging me to get out of my comfort zone, it has opened doors that I never thought about it. For example, I stand on the streets of London and conduct interview with public people to ask about refugee rights in the UK. And now I'm working with BBC, and I had a fellowship with Refugee Council in partnership with the University of Arts of London, as well as I had done some interpreting courses with IRC, and I am working as an interpreter now. So I can say that completing the leadership course with IRC UK fortified my dedication to advocating for human rights and aspiring me to become an authentic leader, capable in influencing decision-making and operating in senior levels in the future. Thank you.
We now just have a couple of minutes breather. Please don't move, because we are going to be back in literally, I can see the clock, 1 minute. Okay, we have our final 4 pitches. Super exciting. We've got Good FX, we've got Turaku Valley Food, we've got Cities for Children, we've got Syra Hospitality. Rob, take to the stage.
Thanks, everyone. Break it up a bit. A quick show of hands. Who here works for an international organization, company, charity, impact fund? Good. Well, you might not know it, but just by existing every year, you generate thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds of profits for banks. Just doing what you always do. Good FX is a B Corp that works with established payment companies to capture those banking products and then divert profits and then divert them to the charities of our clients' choosing and support the refugee. Oh, sorry, I'm not close enough to the mic. And support the refugee work we do. The ask from me after this is go and find your CFO and say there's an actionable way to do what you always do, but we can fund these projects at no extra cost. It supports our work with refugees. It's the missing link for employment that we've talked about. These are pragmatic, scalable solutions. And Nova, our head of sales training, is going to talk to you about that now. Thank you.
It's much closer for me. I'm only 5 foot. So I'm Nova. I am the head of training at Good FX. And we, as well as the core business model, we use our business to empower economic inclusion through training for refugees. Today, I'm here to tell you about how our programs are designed to fill a gap in the market of refugee training, at the same time as raising the bar for refugee employment opportunity. To tell you about our current projects and to tell you how you can help. The UNHCR's recent report, Improving Digital Livelihood Opportunities for Refugees, highlights that many of the existing programs focus on digital freelancing skills. It's a valuable way to train refugees, but often these projects lack consistency for the people they train. Freelancing can be sporadic, competitive, and lacking in job security. This is where GoodFX sees a gap in the market. Now, sales and finance are often seen as the big bads of the corporate world, but as jobs that are always in demand, well paid, and realistically in need of diversity, they present opportunities that are unrivaled in I'm so sorry, I'm just going to have to read, in other careers. I can personally attest to this, having come from a working class background and into a tech sales career that catapulted me into the highest tax bracket in my mid-20s. And dare I say it, with very minimal skills going in. At GoodFX, we think this presents an opportunity for refugees. Sales skills are easy to teach and very possible to prove. That's why we've designed a 10-week course delivered remotely into refugee communities, which breaks down a professional sales process into bite-sized and easy-to-implement steps. This is rolled out in twice-weekly sessions over Zoom, where attendees are supported to understand how to do professional sales and given the opportunity to use their skills on the GoodFX brand, actively engaging with businesses on our behalf, and of course earning commission when they're successful. For our learners, this creates an internship-like experience, blending practical sales training with foundational financial market education provided by Finance Unlocked. This approach not only equips our learners with essential skills, but also enhances their employability, enabling them to showcase real-world experience on their CVs. The primary outcome of our program, therefore, is to equip trainees for business development roles, either locally, supporting the local economy, or remotely. But also, it means that we can enable them to grow their own freelance customer base if they want to. We also use the programs to identify talent for GoodFX's own remote sales team. To date, we've trained 2 training cohorts and are currently embarking on a phase of research to launch a cohort specifically to encourage more refugee women into sales in Kenya. I know there's a few people talked about that, so I'd really love your input if you've got any. Our future focus is to continue to expand, with the ambition of empowering refugee communities worldwide to foster local economic growth and use the GoodFX business model to funnel resources into the local economy rather than established financial centres. To enable this, we are currently looking for funding which will support the deployment of more training cohorts. This funding means that we can partner with local hubs, providing safe spaces for learning, connectivity, equipment, childcare, and furthering our mission to offer dignified, secure, and employment through our sales and finance training programs. So, in closing, GoodFX is offering sales and finance training that is designed to open doors to meaningful, secure, and dignified work through empathetic, practical, and proven programs. Supporting refugees with commercial trainings mean both opening the doors to new, well-paid careers, but also creating sustainability for the current digital freelance community and local economies. So, to use what we call in training an alternative sales closing technique, would you like to fund 1 cohort or would you prefer to fund 10? Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Good to be here. So my name is Matt Hopewell. I'm Executive Director of Tarako Valley Foods. We're a refugee-focused agricultural social enterprise currently operating in a place called Ruamwanja Refugee Settlement, which is in southwestern Uganda. We are currently milling maize grain. It's the staple food of Uganda. We produce maize flour, which we sell, and we're proving that it's possible to do scalable social enterprise in a rural refugee hosting community in Africa. We're hoping to do this in order to encourage further investment into the infrastructure needed in the agricultural value chains in Uganda, but also to be sustainably creating funds to invest back into the producers as well as their consumers producing the locally important produce. So as mentioned earlier, Uganda hosts 1.5 million refugees, mostly from South Sudan and DR Congo. It's the largest refugee hosting country in Africa. Now, what's often not known is that 75% of those refugees depend on farming as their primary source of employment. So it offers a chance for self-employment to sort of achieve food security, a sense of self-reliance. However, the actual value chains themselves, as mentioned by the first speaker this morning, agricultural value chains are very often unjust and inefficient. Setting prices for the producer in the global south, as well in the global north as well, is often very low. In Uganda, in Rwanda, sorry, most maize producers earn only £30 per 6-month season. There's people that are taking advantage of refugee producers, their vulnerabilities, their poverty. Refugees have and other host community smallholders experience an urgency to sell soon after harvest in order to pay school fees and just address their basic needs. So people are taking advantage of that and the lack of resources for aggregation and value addition opportunities by smallholders themselves. Now, the traditional or the normative response has been to continue supporting humanitarian intervention. The plaster of humanitarian support in Uganda is failing. It's falling off, revealing systemic wounds within these dominant agrarian economies on which people are depending. So what we're doing at Turaco is to really be working outside of the humanitarian system and actually get inside very actively into those value chains on which people are depending on. So we're doing that through a 4-stage approach, trying to create a more robust food system and a fairer economy. So the 4 steps are: 1, to be investing into adding value to produce grown by local smallholders in these refugee hosting areas. So as I said, we started with maize, selling maize flour. We produce just 1.7 tons of flour a day. It sounds like a lot, but there's a lot more we could be doing there. We're soon to break even by doing this, by doubling our production. The mill itself employs 19 people, 7 of whom are from the Congo, DR Congo. Now, running a mill and doing value addition gives us the opportunity to provide like a direct market access. We're an off-taker. We need stock to feed the mill. So by doing that, it gives us a chance to offer better selling prices. We offer premium prices up to 18% per kilo of grain that we buy, as long as it's a quality kilo. We have like a different grading level on that. It incentivizes better investment into the production, raising food standards. The second thing is to be actually supporting the supply chain, so offering training at the level of production, but especially post-harvest handling. A lot of NGOs focus on the production element, but not so much on the market linkage and the post-harvest handling of crop. So we do that, and we see yields increase between like 25 to 50% in turn. And then we also we have a 20-acre demonstration farm, so we do test different crops, regenerative growing practices, different types of seed, so that we can be promoting within the area and test other value-added products and their market linkages. The result of which we see farmers able to earn 50 to 80% more income per season, depending on their time of sale. So that's equivalent to about 10 to 20 pounds additional per agricultural season. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like a great first step to help those producers move into other enterprises that aren't necessarily agricultural or into other like higher agricultural value chains. Regarding our investment, as I mentioned, we're breaking even within the next 6 months. That's our projection. But we need to move just a bit beyond just breaking even, and therefore looking for investment to, well, have more infrastructure, more mills, more transportation. We also look at other value-added products and move into other refugee hosting areas within Uganda, maybe beyond, which would necessitate moving into other value-added food products. So yeah, we really believe this is quite a novel, very practical solution to very unjust agricultural economies, generating capital within the refugee settlement rather than wealth being extracted, which it so often is. And yeah, we just hope you would love to talk more about it later, and thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madiha Ansari, and I'm the founder of Cities for Children. Our mission is to protect what we call the right to a childhood for vulnerable children, the right to read and to play in safety. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Klink. Part of him has traveled from afar, from Turkey, and part of him belongs right here at the Conduit. And he's here today to help us celebrate the right to a childhood. And this is the kind of tool that we use in our creative sessions with children that are not just about learning, but also creating joy and building resilience and promoting well-being. Our solution today is called Partners in Learning. It's our signature program, and we're looking to scale it in the UK. The way it works is that we train cohorts of older children, big partners, to be doing creative early learning sessions with younger preschool-aged children, little partners, within their communities. And through this, it's based on an evidence-based child-to-child model infused with our playful learning ethos. And we've reached over 4,000 children in diverse settings through this already, from Afghan refugee and migrant children in urban slums in Pakistan, to conflict-affected communities in a rural mountain school, and now most recently, a school of sanctuary for refugee and asylum-seeking children in Harlesden, here in London. It is a replicable, scalable, gorgeously adaptable program that we've spent a lot of time developing so that the content can resonate, the science, literacy, numeracy content can resonate in different contexts. In terms of impact for the little children, we look at early learning skills, so foundational skills, literacy, numeracy, at a time when their brains are developing super fast. And we look at making sure that they enter school ready to learn and that they can thrive. And this is particularly relevant here right now in the context of a national teaching crisis, and where early years teachers are stretched beyond capacity. For older children, or the big partners, they become these champions of education and of learning in their communities. And they're leading learning, and they develop crucial social-emotional skills with which to navigate life. For refugee and asylum-seeking children, it's especially meaningful because they get to connect with peers, develop confidence, learn to communicate in a new language, and we are tapping their agency or their potential to realize that they can make a change in their own lives as well as others around them. And this is huge, especially for children who may feel like they've lost agency. If they've faced violent or traumatic displacement and just faced bigger structural factors that they can't control. The way that we measure impact for big partners is quite intentional. We have developed ways of measuring sort of impact on confidence and relationship skills and empathy. And one of the most powerful recent experiences actually was with a little boy who was from Syria and had this sort of protective layer of silence and hostility. He had never been to a formal school before. He came here unaccompanied. And and he had a language barrier. It was hard for him to communicate. And in the very first session with primary school children, he found two little girls in his group who were also from Syria, twins. And he just became this big brother role model. And you could see him just open up and blossom, and it was this amazing transformation. And by the end of it, we were talking a lot more too. So in terms of funding, we are a mission-driven, not-for-profit organization, and our work would benefit greatly from grant and philanthropy funding. We can talk about the numbers later. Please come talk. And but we are also looking to potentially partner with private schools and monetize some of the sessions because the skills we build are valuable for every child. We're also looking for new partnerships in the UK, so for service providers working with refugee and asylum seeking kids. So we have proof of concept. We know what we do works. And like Mr. Klink, we believe in the power of happy memories and positive experiences to build resilience for children to cope with difficult circumstances. And we hope we've convinced you to invest in happiness too. Come talk to us.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We're all still here, all still awake, full of caffeine. Last but not least, you've got me. Apologies for that. I'm going to make it short and sweet. Perez has already told me that there's something in my name label here that if I go over 5 minutes, I'm going to just spontaneously combust. So we're going to try and get through this. So bear with us, guys. Coffee station will be coming soon. Thank you for having me. It's a huge honour, and I'm very humbled and feel very privileged to be sharing this space with such inspiring individuals and listening to you speak yesterday. It was absolutely wonderful. But let's start with the basic stuff. Who are we and why are we here? Syra Hospitality is a non-profit organisation that creates pop-up hospitality training schools around the world, from Namibia to Mexico and Ohio to London. We work with marginalised individuals, those who have suffered from homelessness, incarceration, displacement, trauma and long-term unemployment. We are passionate about training applicants of any age, from anywhere, and we place these wonderful individuals into full-time employment within the hospitality industry. Our pop-up schools help hospitality employers rethink the industry's outdated hiring practices by focusing on the training and employment of overlooked communities. We place education, community diplomacy, and social mobility at the core of our mission. Now, since bringing our work to London in 2022, we've seen a huge increase in refugee applicants to our schools and adapted our award-winning training programs to accommodate these resilient and inspiring people, supporting their entry to work in a sustainable and meaningful way for the foreseeable future. Currently, Syra are working with a contingent of rough sleepers, and sadly more than 80% of these individuals are National Asylum Support Service leavers, patiently waiting to be registered for the private rented sector. Our solution not only provides employment, but connections to the ancillary services that shape the lives of these individuals. So let's take a step back and look at our mission, how we do what we do and why. In a number of steps, our mission is simple yet profound. Step one, in each destination we land in, we partner with local hospitality businesses who utilise their hiring and ESG budgets to fund our pop-up schools. For example, in London, we work with everyone from Claridge's and Belmond to Travelodge, Hilton, and everyone in between, many of whom offer live-in accommodation for their employees and pay London living wage or above and provide internal progression training. Step two, we then partner with tens to hundreds of local NGOs, non-profits and charities who refer these marginalised individuals to our programmes in the locality. Step three, we train these individuals via our award-winning curriculum, which focuses on life skills such as communication, emotional intelligence, leadership and customer service. We provide free access to L2 qualifications, online training in hospitality technology software, and anti-CV creation. More on that later. Through our partnership with Cornell University, we provide each student with a certificate, which is recognised worldwide as a hospitality qualification. Step four, during this training, we arrange workshops, guest speaker sessions, and real-world experiences to prepare our candidates for success within the industry. We take our candidates to London's finest dining establishments to break down the walls of accessibility and encourage their appetite to become a part of providing outstanding guest experiences. Step five, after the school, the hospitality partners that funded the programme offer guaranteed job interviews for all graduates. Step six, post-graduation, Syra's true asset kicks in, our everlasting and ongoing support for individuals. We offer comprehensive aftercare support tailored to our students' individual needs, including links to housing, transportation, counselling and career guidance. And this is thanks to our long-standing relationships with global champions of talent and support networks, like our good friends here today, Breaking Barriers. We work with Only a Pavement Away, St Mungo's, The Big Issue, Crisis, the NHS, Job Centre. I could go on, there's so many more. Our goal is to not only equip these individuals with the skills they need to succeed, but also to ensure their safety and well-being throughout their journey into employment and everything that goes with it. Now, looking at the hospitality industry at large, more than ever it faces significant challenges, especially post-Brexit and amid the lingering effects of the pandemic. Restaurants and hotels struggle to find qualified staff, leading to instability and a decline in service quality. By tapping into marginalised talent pools, we at CIRA can address the industry staffing shortages while providing life-changing opportunities to those in need. We believe that diversity and inclusion are not just buzzwords, but essential components of a thriving hospitality sector. We work on the culture fit. We work on the knowledge gap provision to ensure that these aren't just jobs. It isn't just work. It's a meaningful career for those that want to engage in a dynamic environment, to engage in a team, to learn English, to serve face-to-face. We're not focusing on hospitality purely due to these staff shortages. This is an ever-changing and globally essential industry, like what we're all experiencing here today and last night. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. We focus on the value of human interaction, on creating lasting memories and experiences in hospitality. It's an industry where people can genuinely change each other's lives. Looking at scalability, CIRA is a global operation. There is not a supply and demand issue here. We know there are thousands of people looking for work. And at CIRA, we know how to connect them to the right places, the right support, and the right jobs. Our scalability is demonstrated by our global reach, our ability to mobilise not only local trainers, but local project managers on the ground, local students from those communities, and local hotel partners. Our impact to date, 418 marginalised individuals have graduated from our programmes with an overall employment rate of 70% and an annual turnover of just 10%. I don't know whether anyone here in the audience knows the global annual turnover. Okay, it's about 70 to 80%. All right? So with CIRA, that is a minimum 60% improvement. Our impact upon the industry and the potential positive changes we can make together are absolutely colossal. Now, the problem, we have proven success, but gaining funding from hospitality businesses with so many black swan events in the world, it's never been harder. And this is where you folks come in. Now, this is the Dragon's Den moment, so just bear with, okay? We are seeking an investment of £300,000 per year over the next 5 years, which will enable us to sustain our quarterly schools and our operations in London whilst we build a for-profit subsidiary, which will help us scale our business model, reaching farther afield, providing essential training to those most in need of employment, most in need of those connections, and a sustainable future. In conclusion, CIRA Hospitality is more than just a training programme. It is a movement towards inclusivity, opportunity, and social impact. Together we can empower lives, transform communities, and build a brighter future for all. Thank you so much for your consideration and support.
Well, thank you so much to all of our 12 pitches. It takes a lot to get on stage and present to such an incredible audience, so I think that they deserve all of the kudos. And now is where the magic happens. Now is your chance to go and connect with them all, create meaningful solutions and collaborations. So I'm going to ask you to spread out. We have this floor and the reading rooms and the reading room lounge upstairs. We've got different stations for all of the pitches that you've just heard. So down here in the forum, we've got DPACT, Equal Reach, Joblinge, and the Danish Refugee Council. Bear with me. Upstairs in the library, we have Cities for Children, CIRA Hospitality, Parity, and Turaku Valley Foods. And in the lounge, we have Relevant Ventures, Good FX, Each One, and International Rescue Committee. So please do go upstairs, find the people you want to talk to. We're going to have 10-minute sessions for speed networking. Go crazy, meet as many people as you can, and let's create some meaningful connections. Hello? If you are still talking to the same person that you have been for the past 10 minutes, it's time to talk to someone new. I can see you all, and I'm watching. Please move to the next person. I can see that you're all ignoring me. Go and connect with someone new.
Hi, everyone. If you want to start wrapping up your conversations, we are going to start at 12:30 for the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
we're now in the final straits. What separates the concluding remarks and the concluding keynote, or we in the concluding remarks and the concluding keynote are standing between you and Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So that just gives you some sense of what you're competing against, which is why I'm confident it's going to be a crackingly good speech. So Laura Kirk-Smith is the Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee and is eminently well qualified to try and draw together all of the themes that we have thought about. And we will hand over to Laura, and then we will formally close the conference, and we'll all go and have some wonderful lunch. Please.
I mean, if you prefer, I can just say hello, goodbye, and let you go and eat your Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I won't keep you for long, but thank you very much for having me. I'm the UK Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee. So we work in 40 different countries worldwide. We work across what we call the arc of crisis. So we're in conflict and crisis zones like Sudan, Gaza now. We're in neighbouring countries that people flee to, so Chad in the case of Sudan, or Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan in the case of the Syrian refugee crisis. We work along some of the migration routes, and then we also work in safe third countries that people are resettled to, and they always consider themselves to be the lucky few that do come to places like the UK and the US and other European countries. We were privileged to be one of the organisations sharing our ideas earlier. So you've heard from my colleagues Emery and Zara already. I won't emulate what they said particularly. What I wanted to do, and it's a tough job, but it's just try and sort of close out what have been a really fascinating and inspiring set of discussions over the last couple of days. I'll avoid the temptation to sort of rehash some of the challenges, the great challenges that face us, and some of the reasons why we're here. I think that's all very clear. And what I'll focus on instead is a question really about what can be done next in this world where more people are forced to flee their homes than ever before, where the conflicts and the crises that are driving them away from their homes are going on for longer and longer. What can we all do to ensure that refugees and the societies and the economies that host them are set up for success? And you've heard lots of good answers to that in the pitches this morning. But I just want to offer 4 overarching pointers, really, as we think about moving forward. So 4 areas I'll briefly touch on, the first of which is services, because it's obviously vital that we design services for refugees that are informed by the best possible evidence of what works, but also that are designed in partnership with refugees, and that's really how we ensure that we get the best outcome. So I'll say a word on that. I want to talk about systems, because just continuing to deliver services within systems that are stretched at best or broken at worst obviously isn't sustainable, and I think we all need to be taking seriously this question of systems change and what can we do to shape and to reform the systems that surround refugees and too often let them down. The third point I'll touch on is sentiment, public sentiment, and I know this has been a really interesting thread of discussion over the last couple of days, because public sentiment so often is negative and fearful, more than it should be, and results ultimately in the wrong government policies, the wrong actions. And I think again we all have a part in trying to shift that. And finally, I'll come back to solutions. Of course, it's very easy to dwell on the problems, harder to identify and work through solutions. But I think that's why this summit has been set up in such a great way to really take us forward to what the solutions are and how we can all be part of those. So a few words about each of those areas. And first, let me talk about services. And I don't mean to suggest that refugees are somehow dependent on service provision, because they're often not, or not for long, and they rapidly become contributors to our societies and our economies, as Danny said this morning. But nevertheless, there can be particular services that are really needed. And we see in our refugee resettlement and integration programs that getting that right package of support in place early on for new arrivals across language and employment and education and housing and so on really pays dividends later. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to keep improving the services that refugees receive here in the UK and internationally. And there are just two key parts to this, I think, from my point of view. The first is, as I say, designing services based on the best possible evidence of what works. And if that evidence base isn't there yet, then taking real responsibility for making sure that we're learning as we go and sharing out those learnings. And just an example of that, I mean, around the world we run something called a Healing Classrooms programme, which is making sure that children in classrooms are receiving the social and the emotional support that they need given the trauma that they've been through as refugees, on top of the academic learning that's typically offered. And we've seen that work really well in fragile contexts, particularly in parts of the Middle East, but we're taking some of the learnings from that now and seeing how we can deploy them in our work with teachers here in the UK. And it's just been really interesting to build on that evidence base that we've got elsewhere, but also to see how we can refine it and improve it for the UK context. But the second point, I think, on services is the absolutely crucial one, which is about bringing in the refugees who are ultimately supposed to benefit from them, and doing that at the start in terms of designing programs, but also doing that as you monitor and evaluate along the way. And we try to build that into all of the programs that we do in the UK, and it actually drives some really interesting outcomes and different types of programming to what we originally conceived, which is exactly as it should be. And I was just talking to a colleague who works with Ukrainian refugee clients here in the UK, and what started out as quite a broad cultural orientation programme there is now really narrowing in on some mental health provision and engagement for our clients, which came very strongly through the feedback that they gave us about our programmes. And so we're tailoring the work accordingly to make sure we're really meeting the needs as defined by the people that we want to benefit from the work that we do. And we're really excited, I think, to see where that takes us. But I'll go on to the second point, which is on systems, because as an NGO, you can devise the best possible services. But as I say, if the systems around refugees aren't working, then your success will be really limited. And so we're always trying to get now into this discipline of asking, is the system working? Can it be reformed? Is a different system needed? And what's our role in all of that? And how can we help drive those necessary changes? And I'll just give one example which I think brings this to life from our global work, which is malnutrition treatment. So there's 45 million malnourished children in the world. Many of them are trapped in conflict and crisis zones or part of refugee populations or internally displaced populations. And every year, 2 million of those children die. But we have a treatment solution that is 90% effective, something called RUTF, ready-to-use therapeutic food, which is basically a sort of peanut paste. And we know it works, and we have people who are trained in administering it. But it's only reaching 1 in 5 children globally. And the reason for that, as I say, it's not that the treatment solution isn't there, it's not that we don't know how to administer it, but it's that the system around that isn't working. And I'll spare you the details, but essentially in the UN system, children are either classified as moderately acutely malnourished or as severely acute malnourished. And 2 different UN agencies are set up to treat those 2 different types of children. But often in reality, only one of those agencies will be effective. So a severely acutely malnourished child might be treated, but a moderately acutely malnourished child won't be. But if you've got that treatment in there early, you would have stopped them becoming severely acutely malnourished. Or even where those agencies are operational, some of the people that we work with, refugees and displaced populations in particular, aren't able to get to a treatment facility, and there's no way of getting that treatment out into the community. So it's a system that's letting people down. And so we've been asking ourselves, not how do we just keep treating more people, but how do we change this system that doesn't work? And actually through a mix of some pilot programs, and in particular piloting something that we call the simplified protocol, which is basically treating all children through the same simple process, however malnourished they are. and through engagement with some of the key actors in the system, which is not just the UN, but also national and local governments who are ultimately responsible for healthcare for their populations. We're starting to make some headway, but it's a very different way of looking at what is ultimately the same challenge and what the right solutions are in terms of getting food to these malnourished children. So that's systems. And I think, there are so many ways in which systems are letting refugees down. And you can think about the housing system here in the UK that's leaving refugees homeless, or you can think about the World Bank and the way in which it doesn't manage to get its funding into some of the most fragile contexts where people are displaced or living as refugees. Or you can think about the UN's inability to monitor and protect humanitarian access effectively. The list could go on. But I think we all need to be ambitious that we can not only deliver services, but that we can advocate for and be part of that systems change that is ultimately needed to better serve refugees. Let me go to the third point I wanted to make, which is on sentiment and public sentiment. Because obviously all of us who work with refugees know that they're incredibly driven and resilient and hopeful people. And yet the dominant voices that you hear in politics and the media are often hostile and fearful, but also based on myths and lies and not on the facts. Each year, we at the International Rescue Committee publish something called an emergency watch list, which is the top 20 crises that we think are most at risk of deterioration in the year ahead. And this year we focused it on, the theme was on myths and some of the myths that dominate the debate about refugees and asylum seekers, and then the reality behind those myths. But just to pull out one or two examples, there's this big myth you hear often that the US and the UK and Europe are already hosting more than their fair share of displaced people and shouldn't be expected to receive any more. When in fact, of course, at least 3/4 of the world's refugees are in developing countries, which are often fragile in their own right. But this rhetoric is dangerous because it has real-world impact. And we see how instead of improving the response to humanitarian crises and working with countries that are hosting the bulk of the world's refugees, we're instead seeing this approach of enforcing border controls and stripping away people's right to seek asylum. And actually, if Western countries are doing this, it then provides cover for others to do it as well. And it's just been interesting watching and sad watching the conflict in Sudan play out and seeing other countries like Egypt shutting their borders as well and thinking, well, if that can happen in Europe, that can happen here. So there's this steady undermining, I think, of some of the really basic protections that refugees need and deserve. And here in the UK, obviously, we see, and I've had conversations about this in the last couple of days, but myths spoken or published most days about people arriving on small boats being illegal, being an invasion, when in fact the right to seek asylum is such a core part of international law. And we've been doing a lot of advocacy around protecting that right to seek asylum and making sure that if you are thinking about how you can discourage people from taking dangerous journeys, you need there to be safe alternatives in place for that to be effective. So we're really seeing play out this risk that hostile political and public narratives intersect and ultimately drive the wrong actions, and here are really, really holding back the government from putting in place effective and humane policies in place for refugees. But I think one thing we can hopefully all take away from this summit are some of the stories that we've heard and the ideas that we've heard from refugees and from organisations that are working with refugees. And ultimately, we're all storytellers. We can all play our part, I think, in changing some of these dangerous narratives that surround refugees. And we can all be out there and correcting misperceptions and spelling out facts and sharing ideas and sharing stories of people like my colleague Zara, who you heard from earlier, who's left Afghanistan and come here and did brilliant things in Afghanistan and is doing brilliant things here. But these are the stories that I think we all have a role in making sure gains some traction and some better public understanding. So finally, and conscious of Ben and Jerry's hanging over me, I'll turn to this fourth point on solutions. And I think, as I say, in a world where the challenges are mounting, it can start to feel impossible and you can start to feel quite stuck. And it's more important than ever that we stay laser-like focused on solutions. And they're out there. And I mean, just to give a few examples, and you've heard lots today, but, you know, we're doing some work in the north of Syria, which is affected by more than a decade of conflict, but also by climate change now. There's increasing prevalence of drought. And we've worked to develop some climate-adapted seeds, but also to work with networks of farmers to ensure that they can better navigate this challenge of climate change on top of conflict. And we're already starting to see some gains there in terms of the availability of nutritious food. There's a bit of work we're getting going with the UK, well, funded by the UK government, which is working with schools in fragile contexts and in places hosting lots of refugees, to ensure that ahead of extreme weather events, schools have access to satellite data. They're supported to make adjustments to shift to remote learning or to move their provision to places where communities may need to move. And doing that anticipatory work before a flood or another disaster strikes, we think will make real progress in terms of how, in terms of the continuation of the education provision that does exist. And there's lots more. There's a program that we're running called Signpost, which gets information, vital information about their rights and the services that are available to them, to refugees. And 40 million people accessed that program last year. And there's lots that we'll do, I hope, with AI over the next year or two to make that easier to run and easier to access. So there are these proven solutions out there. And the best ones come from refugees and from the refugee communities themselves. And I think we feel a really strong obligation to be a good partner and to help surface and incubate some of those solutions. But sometimes they lack buy-in, sometimes they lack funding, sometimes they just lack awareness. And I think that's why today has been so important, and really the most powerful part of it all is the fact that you all as a community of people are committed to these solutions, and that we've identified lots today that can move forward. So those were the 4 points that really struck me: services, systems, sentiment, and solutions. And I hope that has some resonance for you and helps shape how we think about this moving forward. But huge thank you to the Conduit and the organisers of this fantastic summit, and thank you for having me. And I wish you well for the rest of the day and for the brilliant work that will follow. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's 180 seconds between me and your ice cream. So I'm now going to just say one or two concluding remarks and to make some what I hope will be exciting announcements. My concluding observation is there was a famous study written in India trying to understand why it was that certain cities had high levels of Muslim-Hindu conflict and certain cities which had the same economics and the same demographics and the same urban layout had very low levels of Muslim-Hindu conflict. And a really important scholar did almost a decade of research into all the factors that he thought would explain, a man by the name of Ashutosh Varshney, explain the absence or the prevalence of Muslim-Hindu conflict in India. And he came to the conclusion that the main driver of Muslim-Hindu conflict was demagogues who, for electoral advantage at crucial moments, preyed on people's base instincts and stirred on divisions between people as a way of holding on to power. This sounds familiar. You'll see where this metaphor is going. And then he ascertained that the cities where people did not succumb to the demagogues were the cities where people were Muslims and Hindus in parent-teacher associations, in cricket clubs, in businesses, and where you had what he termed high levels of associational life. Associational life were organizations which went about doing good work and which drew people from different worlds and perspectives into daily contact with each other. And that contact with each other through doing what ordinary people do every day, which allow people to fulfill their full potential, served as an inoculant. It was a T cell. It helped people build resilience against demagoguery. And today, when I close this, I think of what we've done in the last 2 days as building up and flexing the muscles of associational life. You are an embodiment of that associational life. You do that work in all your organizations all the time. And what we're doing here by gathering everybody together is further cementing that associational life together. You do your own work in your own sectors, but we're building greater tissue connections and greater sinews and greater Ubuntu between all of you, because it'll make you stronger, it'll make you more effective, it'll make you more generous, it'll make us more innovative, it'll help mobilize resources in ways that I think will be really remarkable. So with that in mind, we are definitely going to do this again next year. And so it's not going to be a one-off. That's an announcement. Secondly, with our wonderful colleagues at the Human Safety Net, Emma and Alan, we have conspired that we will do work with them either here or in Venice or both. They do remarkable support and funding, so we will do follow-up work with them, and we will make some announcements in that regard soon. The Conduit Foundation, which has been advising one of our members in allocating resources. We've allocated through them about £1 million of resources to people working in this sector and working with at-risk youth. We will continue to do it in the course of this year at similar levels. And through Conduit Connect, our sister company, we will continue to be a platform to be able to help raise resources for for-profit companies working in this space. And this is something we can take absolutely no credit for, but which has the benefit of serendipity, Comic Relief today, believe it or not, has announced a £2 million fund to support UK-based organizations working on refugees. And so to the extent that serendipity begets serendipity, I think what you're beginning to see is that this is going to be a cause that is going to grow in importance, and your work will continue in a corresponding way to grow in importance, and we will be honored to be a platform and a convener and a supporter and to be a conduit between all of you in this space. I'm going to conclude by doing a giant shout out to Rosie and to Perez, who just did remarkable work. Leaders only look good because of their teams, and I just look good right now because of them. So they really did fantastically good work, and they in turn have worked with a huge number of people across the Conduit, and our steering committee who helped put this conference together, who I thank profusely at the beginning, deserve all of the credit for the architecture of this remarkable event. So thank you so much for coming. It's a soft goodbye, and we'll see you again soon in many different events, and please join us for lunch, and thank you very much.